Mental rehearsal is used by Olympic athletes, by surgeons, by golfers. Think of when you watch the Olympics and you saw the diver up on the board, closing her eyes for 10, 15 seconds, motionless. What was she doing? She was visualizing her dive. They close their eyes and they mentally execute the perfect dive, the perfect sequence, their takeoff, their spin, their rotation, their entry into the water, their splash. They're coming up to the sound of applause because visualizing their dive helps them to successfully complete it.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles.
Picture this. You're standing in the courthouse bathroom, stressed, worried, looking yourself in the mirror, wondering if you're capable. Your heart is racing, you're scared, you're anxious. You're about to face one of the most respected, inflammatory, and feared attorneys in Baltimore City in your very, very first solo jury trial. The voice in your head is relentless. You're too inexperienced. You don't know what you're doing. You don't stand a chance. You're likely to embarrass yourself. Does that sound familiar? What happened next taught me a lesson about confidence that transformed my 40-year legal career, and it doesn't come from additional case preparation or legal research. There's a real crisis of confidence, isn't there, in our profession? Our lawyers struggle so much with self-doubt, with questioning whether they're good enough, and we suffer depression at much higher rates than those of other professionals. It's really scary. Substance abuse, depression, self-doubt, anxiety, stress. It all comes from our lack of confidence. And I know for me, I won a string of trucking cases I was defending, and no one is ever on the side of the big bad trucker. And I won a series of cases in a row. But despite that, I still doubted myself. I still wondered if I was good enough. And that points out the paradox. Our external success never silences our internal doubt. Our track record, our wins, our victories, they don't stop us from doubting ourselves. They don't solve the crisis of confidence. And the impact on our performance is powerful. We have poor outcomes at mediations and trial. We're dissatisfied with our practice. We struggle with burnout. We wonder why we're doing it. We're always under stress and anxiety. We question our own ability to perform. So what I want to talk about today is visualization. Really, visualization? That's the key. It is so helpful, and this is not just wishful thinking. Mental rehearsal is used by Olympic athletes, by surgeons, by golfers. Think of when you watch the Olympics and you saw the diver up on the board, closing her eyes for 10, 15 seconds, motionless. What was she doing? She was visualizing her dive. They close their eyes and they mentally execute the perfect dive, the perfect sequence, their takeoff, their spin, their rotation, their entry into the water, their splash. They're coming up to the sound of applause because visualizing their dive helps them to successfully complete it. And let me give you another example. Pro golfers. Tiger Woods was known for taking a step back, closing his eyes and visualizing before he struck his next shot. He visualized every shot before taking it. He felt the slow takeaway, the impact of the ball, the follow through, seeing the ball in the air, seeing its trajectory, seeing it land near the pin, and then hearing the crowd's reaction. See, visualization creates mental blueprints for success. Neuroscience tells us that when we vividly imagine performing an action, your brain fires the same neural pathways as when you physically do it. Your motor cortex literally can't tell the difference between a perfectly visualized cross-examination and you're actually doing one. So it creates a mental pathway to success. And what happens when you visualize before important legal hearings, trials, negotiations, client meetings? You have so much less anxiety because you feel prepared and successful. You're more adaptable when challenges arise. Your recall key information under pressure will be improved. Have a more authentic presence in the client meeting or the mediation or trial. You'll connect with the jury better. And if things go wrong or unexpected hurdles pop up, and don't they always, you'll recover faster. Let me talk to you about 3 typical scenarios where visualization can be helpful. The first is the courtroom. When you have a trial coming up, create the scene just as it will be. See the exact courtroom that you'll be in. Hear the judge talking. See the jury in the box. Feel and experience the very courtroom environment that you will be in. And then see yourself delivering your opening statement, handling objections, responding to questions from the judge, conducting a powerful cross-examination. And see yourself preparing for challenges, a hostile witness, repeated objections from opposing counsel, surprising rulings from the judge. See those things. And that's what I failed to do in my very first trial. I was faced with so many inflammatory comments, inappropriate statements by opposing counsel. I knew that would happen, but I wasn't really prepared for it. I should have visualized it happening, seeing how I responded. It ended up okay because I ended up winning the case, but I learned what I should have done differently because I felt so much more stress because I did not visualize my successful performance in court. The second area where this is so helpful is when you have a big client meeting with an important client, a challenging client. See yourself sitting in the conference room with the client, explaining the complex concepts of the case to the client clearly, seeing him nodding in understanding and support. See him smiling, hearing the advice from you. And when you have a difficult client that you know is coming in, see yourself talking to him or her and maintaining your composure, remaining calm when you get challenging questions or difficult comments. And then visualize the outcome of the meeting, how you're engaging with your satisfied clients, how they're happy and smiling and relaxed and more comfortable when they came in, and seeing that you've arrived at the next steps for handling the matter. And the other is with your professional growth in a couple arenas. First is leadership. See yourself leading a department or team meeting, building consensus, listening to all the participants, providing sound advice, handling any disagreements or concerns. And in business development, sometimes I used to get anxious before I'd be at a networking event. And I didn't really visualize that as I should have. I'd sometimes stand off in the side of the room because I was anxious. But see yourself networking with important prospective clients or referral partners, articulating what it is about you that makes you special and unique and different, listening to the other lawyers or referral partners or prospective clients, hearing what they have to say, and empathizing with them and being supportive and explaining what you do and why you're different than other lawyers. And the same with public speaking. I had my first public speaking event earlier this year, and I wish I had spent more time visualizing it and preparing for it and seeing my success. I did okay. I did fine. But if I'd actually spent time visualizing it, seeing myself up in the front of the room, speaking with confidence, explaining the concepts. Actually, the presentation was on confidence, but I didn't spend enough time visualizing, and I've learned since then how helpful it is. So here's what I suggest you do for implementation. Try to find a few minutes each day where you can spend time practicing visualizing things coming up in your calendar. And if it's a major event like a trial, court of appeals argument, a big hearing, a big client meeting, begin visualizing 3 days or a week ahead of time, each day spending a few minutes visualizing, and do it in a quiet, distraction-free space when you aren't going to be interrupted. And, just so you know, and this is probably obvious, this doesn't replace your preparation, your research, your efforts. But just spending a couple minutes visualizing can honestly make so much of a difference in the world. I played a lot of golf, and I know there are times I do a good job of visualizing, and it helps. Doesn't guarantee the perfect outcome, but it helps. When I have to hit the ball over the lake and I'm thinking about the lake, um, my ball's likely to splash in it. But when I see past the lake, I see the green, I see the pin, I see where it is, I see my ball flying and landing next to it, I'm more likely to have a successful shot. And I know some lawyers raise a number of objections to the power of visualization. Some say I don't have time, but good lawyers do this because it works and it takes so little time. Takes so little time. A couple minutes a day is all you need to really do your visualization. And trust me, it will help. And some feel like, oh, it's just wishful thinking. And I get that. I get that it seems woo-woo. It seems a little, oh, come on, visualizing makes a difference. But from what I understand, it actually neurologically optimizes your readiness. It prepares you better. And some say, and I'm one of those, I can't visualize effectively. Well, it's a practice, not an event. It's something that the more you do, the better you get at it. So if that's your concern, just give it a try. When you have your first time appearance in court, first time appearance in appellate court, first time deposition, when you have those big events coming up, that's something that is beyond what you've done before, take time to mentally prepare for it and imagine the entire experience. If it's a big deposition or a deposition of a different kind, see yourself at the table. See yourself asking the party questions. See yourself handling the responses from opposing counsel. And sometimes we have a counsel we know who is difficult, intimidating. And visualize yourself as an equal professional. Visualize yourself handling his difficult challenges, his unfair statements. See yourself responding. And it's particularly helpful when you suffer a setback. I've shared before about really late in my career, I suffered an absolutely terrible result. It was a pretty easy auto tort. Medicals were difficult. The accident was easy. And both I and defense counsel expected a plaintiff's verdict, but I didn't get one. And it really did set me back. But, you can use it to recover from setbacks. Visualizing helps you to build resilience by mentally rehearsing your response. And what I should have done was, rehearse my returning to court with renewed confidence. See myself discussing that loss objectively with colleagues, visualizing myself applying the lessons I learned to future cases. That seemed like such a slam dunk case, that liability is so clear. And when the jury returned with that defense verdict, I was devastated. The result was, inexplicable. But visualizing my response, my recovery from that would have been so helpful. Instead of spending weeks obsessing and replaying what went wrong, I could have used mental rehearsal to visualize myself processing the loss constructively, discussing it objectively with my partner, and most importantly, seeing myself returning to court with renewed confidence for my next case. Visualization can create mental resilience patterns that will activate automatically when you need them most. So after you try this for a while, measure your success. Track how long you speak in meetings, if you're willing to speak up when before you're afraid, or your willingness to take challenging cases, or how little time you spend ruminating and worrying, or how your symptoms of stress have reduced. Measure what your client feedback is like when they see you responding with greater confidence. What you will find is if you visualize these different events that come up that normally would cause you stress, if you keep visualizing you're handling them, you will build a reservoir of confidence over time. After 4 decades in this profession, I can tell you that the hours I invested in transforming my mental approach yielded returns far exceeding any other professional development. And the thing is, it's something you have power over and you have control over, and it doesn't take long. Your inner critic will never disappear entirely. But with mental rehearsal, you can reduce its influence and increase your impact, both in the courtroom and in your life. The question is not whether you can afford to practice visualization. The question really is, can you afford not to? If you're ready to build unshakable confidence and transform your practice from the inside out, I invite you to schedule a complimentary coaching call with me. The link's in the show notes. Let's discuss how mental rehearsal can specifically address the challenges you face and help you become the confident, fulfilled attorney you are meant to be. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free.